Is this the usual spring training hype, or do you think that the Rangers bullpen has really improved? Because I get it. At this time of the year, everyone says like, oh yeah, it's a new starter. We got this thing going for us, blah, 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 blah. But it does feel like if you look at a couple of different things, and we can discuss whoever that you want in here, that the Rangers maybe have more choices in the bullpen than I would have anticipated.
I'll be, I guess, a little optimistic and say, hey, it looks pretty good on paper.
Okay.
But I want to see it perform when it really counts. Like I can't.
Fair.
There's nothing in spring training that would look like. Now, if they would have signed Josh Hader is it Stevenson from Tampa Bay that I think went to the Angels? Like if they would have signed those two guys, I'd have been like, dude, yeah. I mean, let's look at it. You just got the best left-handed reliever in all of baseball to close out your games. You got another dude who looks like could be a closer, and you still have Leclerc and Spores. Like, I'd be like, that on piece of paper looks awesome. Right now, I'm like, hey, I think it's going to be better. I'm optimistic that it's going to be better, and let's be honest here. The bar for regular season bullpen is not very high for what was accomplished last year.
We had the worst bullpen in history for a team that good.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be better. So I'm optimistic it's going to be better. Is it going to be great, a top 3 or 5 bullpen in the American League? Let's let it play out.
At the moment, what is your faith in the 2 additions in David Robertson and Kirby Yates? Types of pitchers that they are, and how they will fit in, because I feel like the only 2 I really have faith in right now, because I've seen them, are Leclerc and Spores. And like that's because they were on fire at the right time. Yeah. More than anything, at the right time. And I'm just assuming they'll carry that over.
Okay, and I definitely understand your question, and I do have faith in those 2, but I think my answer actually encompasses a couple of other people too, because all of a sudden, whether it's Adrian Sampson, whether it's Diego Castillo, it feels like you have your non-roster invitees that are pushing really hard to get a spot in the bullpen. And so I think that level of, I'm going to say depth, it could turn out competition. Yeah. It could turn out to be not useful depth whatsoever. But I think that's what's got me feeling a little bit better, is because there are people competing to get this spot, and you might end up leaving off, let's just say like you leave off Diego Castillo, and people are like, oh man, I thought he's been pretty good.
Yeah, so like guys like Tinoco and Antoine Kelly that we're kind of looking at.
I don't think are going to make it.
Yeah, I mean the big 6'4", pitchers and stuff like these are tall, big guys that fit everybody's looking for something like that, and they have these abilities to go out there and do that. So I think you're right, Kevin. If you just said, hey, we'll just see if we can get by with whatever, instead of continuing to pack in that, the competition style. I mean, even look at the roster, the lineup right now. The way the Rangers lineup is, it's too crowded for talented players to play on.
Sure.
Almost like we're looking at the outfield. We're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get Wyatt Langford on the field? But what about, you're arguing about that. It's a great problem to have right now. And you're hopeful that by the end of this spring training camp, you have an idea that, man, this is a great problem that we have a bunch of bullpen arms that we don't know exactly what to do with yet.
And for Kirby Yates, you go through 2020 through 2022, all kinds of injury issues, including the Tommy John. And then last year, 3.28 ERA, 80 strikeouts in 60 innings, which is great. But here's what Kirby Yates said. My confidence level is a lot better than it was last year. I'm coming in here expecting to be really good again. So he's like, it wasn't like last season was a bad season or anything like that, but he is saying, hey, look, I had this season. I know what I can do. I saw what I can do. I don't know if it's just the physical part or if the mental block is off as well. And we had a chance to talk to Kirby Yates, and he did feel very confident. And so I think that's a potential positive. I keep bringing up Diego Castillo. I don't know if he's going to make the bullpen or not. My guess for now would be yes, but he is somebody who used to be a really excellent pitcher. And then you saw a dip in his velocity, and the Rangers essentially sent him out on assignment, and that velocity has propped back up to close to the levels it was when he was really good. So that's intriguing there as well. Adrian Sampson, that's somebody who we talk with Sandler about, is, hey, maybe this guy makes the team after all. So there are more competitors than I might have guessed.
I have a question, Mike, when it comes to bullpen. How many How many pitches do you typically does a dude need two? Just two really good ones? Or is it always three?
You almost have to have two unless you have Mariano Rivera's cutter. Like if you have something that is just so dominating and
all-time elite.
Yeah.
But three's not necessary, two is.
Yes.
Okay.
For the most part, unless you have something so unhittable that you can almost tell the guy, I'm just going to throw it, and you know I'm going to throw it, and it doesn't matter.
Like Leclerc thought he could do for a while with the Slambio. He was just like, I'm just going to throw that up there because he didn't have faith in his fastball for a long time, and now he's kind of refigured all that out. He has more faith in it, it felt like. Because I've just always wondered, it feels like you're coming in for an inning. You don't need to have that other one extra thing to go along with it, but it does seem like bullpen, hey, because you're coming in for only an inning or two, velocity is going to be important.
Yeah.
So for like Diego Castillo, that's going to be one of those things that he has to rest on.
Or if you want to throw another person out there, Yuri Rodriguez is, and we've talked about Mark Church, obviously. I know Mark Church has a unique story. We talked about the $50 bet last week and everything.
And how he speaks English.
Yes, that was surely shocking to Eric Chiafalo, but those are two more that maybe don't make the bullpen. But perhaps is this the number one reason to be optimistic about the bullpen? Is I think that Danny Duffy is going to make this bullpen, and that would mean that David Robertson, Kirby Yates, and Danny Duffy. We talked to 3/8 of the potential Rangers bullpen.
Yeah.
For opening day out in spring training. And so maybe we can get a little of that magic G-bag dust on us and give them the K&C bump while we're at it.
Go ahead. Well, I guess I would look at it this way. Right now, no matter what happens in spring training, unless there's major injuries to your competition, I look at the Houston Astros and the Seattle Mariners as the competition to win the division with the Texas Rangers. All of those teams, when you think about it, Seattle finished one game back of those two. It was not like, oh man, Seattle, like literally if they would have won on that Saturday and then did what they did on Sunday, it would have been the Rangers
who missed out.
I think they'd have been in a one-game playoff situation. But I look at Seattle and I look at Houston and I look at Texas, and going into the season, I would say that Texas has the third best bullpen. That can change throughout the year. Bullpens are so tough to predict. But I look at Houston, and I look at Josh Hader, and I look at Abreu, and I look at, why am I drawing a blank? The kid who's local from here, Presley. They have two closers, legitimate good closers, and then a really good setup guy. That's tough to look at Leclerc and go, is Leclerc better than Hader? Is he better than Presley? Then look at Spores. Is he better than one of those two guys? And then look at the two guys you added that are going to be 37 and 39 and say, are they better than Abreu? And they have some other guys too. I'd say it's tough to say yes going into the season. So I would give Houston the advantage. I look at Seattle and I look at some of their numbers. They were able to trade Sewald to the Arizona Diamondbacks when things weren't going well for them near the end of July, and they still had a really good bullpen. So I look at your competition and go, going into the season, the teams you're competing against, you're probably in third in your bullpen, but you're not super far behind. It's not like the end of the world. Oh no, are we only going to say 50% of our games, like you did last year? I think you'll be better than that.
Well, I think that is a totally fair observation. How many, we've joked about this before. You want to get every save conversion, but do you think it's realistic to look back at last year and be like, just statistically, if you're not all-time awful, you should have been able to convert 8 to 10 more wins out of that?
I think it's a 100-win team with a average bullpen. You're probably at 96 to 98 wins with a good, not even great bullpen. With a good bullpen, you're at 100 wins.
And I think I kind of go back to the Cowboys defensive philosophy we talked about and maybe argued about a few years ago is I just think average is what I'm looking at. And I'm like, this could absolutely be an average bullpen, which I know doesn't sound like something you would shoot for, but does that help this team get closer to either back to 90 wins or hopefully above 90 wins? Because starting pitching wise, it seems logical to think they will take a dip, at least in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. In fact, watching a lot of MLB Network, they're basing who they think is a playoff contender or a team that's going to make a deep run in the playoffs. And Cliff Floyd said this yesterday, and I can't remember what team he was doing he's like, I always look at the starting pitching rotation to tell me if this is a playoff contender or not.
Okay.
And so, to your point, that's how a lot of baseball people look at. First, I want to look at the rotation. Is that rotation good enough to win 90 games? If I think that rotation is good enough to win 90 games, I'm going to predict them to make the playoffs, or at least be really close to making the playoffs. So I think your point is validated by Cliff Floyd yesterday or this morning when I was watching it, saying, hey, I look at this team and I like their starting rotation, which means I like them to make the playoffs.
I love the Rangers bullpen right now, Kevin, and their starting rotation. Yeah, and their lineup. And I think they're better than the Astros. The Astros could eat one.
Okay. I like it. That is
matter of fact. At 1
I don't know how
o'clock
to follow
today.
that up. I know that you're looking at us to talk now.
At 1 o'clock today.
I don't know how to follow that up.
At 1 o'clock today, we will be discussing when the Rangers become inevitable. And it does have to do with the. I'm sorry, I have a lot of Astros hate today right now.
What has brought?
A tweet.
Fair.
Just a tweet. I just saw a tweet now. It just reminded me how much I hate them and how much I want to continue to build on this rivalry that they have with both teams being good. Like that's where I'm focusing in, and I'm hearing Mike talk about, like, I can't say that they're the better bullpen, but they had really, aside from Hader, they had a really good bullpen last year, except they didn't have a left-handed arm, and the Rangers were able to still overcome that. Obviously, now I don't know how much the left-handed arm was factored into that, Mike. I really don't know if the Rangers still would have overcome it had they had a really good left-handed arm. We'll probably get that opportunity to see it. The bullpens don't go up against each other. Can our bats handle what they have? And same, because I feel like the Astros are the thing that's going to be in the way. That's the thing that we're going to have to face and see at some point, whether it's for the division and Seattle too, but whether it's for the division or whether it's for a championship, I feel like the Astros are going to be in that conversation the whole time.
For sure. I agree with that. I just think this is honestly not a two-team race. Like, if you look at the Dallas Cowboys this upcoming season, it's Philadelphia and it's Dallas. Like, most likely Washington and New York are not going to compete.
Agreed.
And I don't think the Angels or the A's are going to compete at all for a playoff spot in 2024. But I know that 3 teams will in your division, including yourself. So
you saw for the person who brought up Yuri Rodriguez, you saw the good and bad of it yesterday. We preface this all the time, spring training game, but Rangers, by the way, struck out 16 people yesterday, which is impressive, but that tied a Cactus League club record. Yuri Rodriguez had 4 strikeouts. He did also give up a home run, but he was hitting 98 miles per hour. And one of the things that Bochy said was his stuff is electric at times, and you've seen a lot more consistency on the velocity. Yeah. And so does that mean automatically he's good to go, plug and play? Probably not, but it gives you another option because you're going to need a lot more than what you see on opening day.
And I think this is always the tough thing about spring training, and you do have to you're talking about they're going to have to make 3 or 4 major decisions to start the year on 40-man spots, on who makes the team, who goes down to AAA, who has a contract, like Diego Castillo. I don't know his contract if he has an out on March 25th, if he doesn't make the team. And same thing with
he might piece on down the road.
Like, so I don't know. And then that makes a tough or an easy decision, tougher or easier on the contract status on if I can send a guy to AAA or not. I would say this: when you're getting ready for a major league game, there is so much scouting report that goes into that game. And then there's so many major decisions that Bruce Bochy and Mike Maddox are making in that game on who we want to get up now, who's rested, who's not rested, where they're at in the lineup, who's hot in their lineup, all these things. In spring training, there's no scouting report. It's like, you're pitching the 5th inning. We could care less who's hitting. We need you to go out there, throw 25 pitches or less, hopefully, work on your stuff. Today might be a day we really want to throw 50% sliders. It might not make any sense in the world. I talked about this with Rougned Odor. It would make no sense in the world on 2-0 to throw him a fastball in the zone. But it does in spring training, and then he hits a home run. You're like, hey, Rougie Odor's figuring it out. He's finding it out. It's like, is anybody ever going to throw him a 2-0 fastball for a strike in the regular season? No, the scouting report says don't do that.
Now, we are a show of the people, always trying to communicate information to the people. From the 469.
I don't know, dude.
Hey, guys, just to let y'all know, there's an undercover bust going down on Harry Hines right now.
Why are you doing that? What if the people that are going to get busted are listening right now and they're like, "Oh crap,
Yeah,
we're
now it's
doing
an
something illegal
overcover.
on
Here's
Harry
my theory.
Hines," and they're looking around pointing fingers at who the narc is.
I don't think so. I think we're a tool of the police right here. I think the bust is actually going on adjacent to that. And by announcing it, they'll cause the would-be criminals to flee to said adjacent streets where the actual bust is going on. Bam! Power radio.
So there has to be a Jason over there? Is that what you're saying?
No. You know what? Yes.